Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the session. We're going to get started in a few minutes. We're just going to let you guys all filter in right now. So hang tight. See the attendees starting to come in. This is wonderful. My name is Nina. I work with tech. You have a great presentation lined up for you in the next hour, so I'm so excited for you guys to see it. Excellent. All right, 83 people in the room so far, 84. I love watching it climb. This is so exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. We're super excited to be here today, and thank you guys for joining us.
All right, everyone, we're going to get started at about, we'll say 12:03. We'll go full steam ahead. So in the next 2 minutes, make sure you have a nice cup of coffee or some water. A little snack to enjoy while you watch the presentation.
Yeah, we're right at that lunchtime, huh? So
yeah,
might be a lot of eating happening while we're on this call.
95 people strong in here right now. This is amazing. So happy to see you guys all filtering in. We're going to get started in about a minute. Patrick, to answer your question, yes, it will be recorded. We're going to send out the video link to that a little later this week. So if there's anything you missed, you'll be able to rewatch it. All right, it's 12:03. I am going to mute myself and get you Joseph Sanfilippo, pretty much the voice of tech.
Oh, sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Joseph Sanfilippo. I'm the Director of E-Learning for Tech. Today, we have Amy Lynch, a Director of Education Sales for Smart Technologies, as well as several people she's going to introduce more specifically, but really your team, teachers, admin, technology team from Cherry Hill Public Schools in South Jersey, New Jersey, America, USA, and they're going to cover engaging, interacting, and monitoring progress with class or distance, or in class or at a distance learning using Smart Learning Suite online, and you'll learn much more about what that is and how they are currently utilizing it or were utilizing it in the spring, as well as what they're looking to do pushing forward. A couple of housekeeping tips for today. There are two things. There is a chat box as well as a question answer. So everyone is automatically muted was the first question that we got in there, as well as a certification of completion. Nina will be able to provide information of coming. So we are providing that you attended today if you did attend. So we'll give you that information towards the end. So there's a chat box just to chat and keep the discussion going, but there's also a way to do Q&A, because that's a little bit easier for us, as there's a couple hundred people here, to manage and monitor all the questions. We will have Q&A time at the end, but don't hesitate to type in, and if you don't get an answer, we'll make sure you get to it. I'll be managing that throughout. But without further ado, I'm going to give it over to Amy to introduce the team, and we'll go from there.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Lynch. Thank you, Joseph. So I am the director of the education team for Smart in North America. And when we first started working with tech and they were telling us about this amazing online PD opportunity, we thought Cherry Hill would be the most perfect person. They're an amazing customer. I'm super excited to introduce them. They are always pushing the needle, always super innovative, and just a great partnership between curriculum and technology, and it really shows with what they're able to accomplish. So they already had some groundwork laid as they started to have to deal with blended learning and remote learning. So they had a leg up, and I'm excited to introduce them today and have them share with you what they did last spring and what they're planning to do in the fall. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Farrah Mahan, and she is the Director of Curriculum And then we have with us here today, I'll introduce everyone. We have Marc Plevinsky. So Marc is the Assistant Director of Technology. Hi, Marc. See him waving there. And we also have Jenn Taylor with us. So Jenn is a 5th grade teacher, and she's going to do a little sample lesson as well, so you can see what it actually looks like in the classroom. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Farrah, if you want to introduce the team a little bit more and jump right in. Does that work?
Yes, Amy, thank you for that warm welcome. So as Amy mentioned, my name is Farrah Mahan. I'm the Director of Curriculum for Cherry Hill Public Schools, and I'm excited for the opportunity to share our journey with you, along with 2 of my colleagues, Jenn Taylor and Marc Plevinsky. And thank you to Tech and to Smart for giving us this platform to be able to share what we've done over the last 7 months or so. So Marc and Jenn, if you want to add anything else, go ahead. If not, we can move on.
Just hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
Yep. Hello. Nice to see everyone or work with everyone.
All right. And we just shared these pictures because being part of the Cherry Hill Public Schools family is important to us. So we wanted to give you a glimpse into our families and some of the things that we like to do. So that's who we are. So just to tell you a little bit about Cherry Hill Public Schools, we are a large suburban school district just outside of Philadelphia. We're about 10 minutes outside of Philadelphia. We service approximately 11,000 students. We have 19 schools. And on this slide, you can see the demographic for the population that we serve. We are excited to promote our diversity and to welcome all families into the Cherry Hill Public School community.
And thanks, Farah. With that overview of our district, we also have quite a diverse population of technology, and we use a diverse set of technologies to support our staff and our students. So that population includes over 11,000 Chromebooks that we support here from our technology team, and over 3,000 PCs, host of servers, and smart boards, et cetera. In 2018, we implemented a staff one-to-one initiative where we had a staff device for every staff member, which was crucial as we went into COVID-19. And we also have what we call a one-to-classroom initiative for our students. So that was some of the pieces of the challenge that we needed to solve because we were not sending devices home prior to COVID-19 with our students. They were using our devices and that set of technology in district. And for me, I manage a staff of 15 folks, which includes 8 building technicians supporting our 19 schools throughout Cherry Hill. So where did we start? And our journey before COVID has been quite a long journey of evolving technology. And key to that journey was back in 2018 when the technology department, the technology team that I work with merged with our curriculum and instruction department under the leadership with Farah. And important for us there is that it changed our conversations, and those conversations are so critical to what we do. And the key change for us was that our conversations became less technology and implementation focused, but more service oriented and more curriculum focused of how technology could support the needs and the tools that were needed to support instruction in our district. So part of that journey, again, were those conversations. And we look to learn from our peers at events like Texpo and ISTE, as well as presenting and talking about our story and our journey here. We toured our buildings. We looked at what needs we had, what was out throughout our district, what tools, what technologies, what was being used, because we want our technology to be used. Technology sitting aside and not being used by our staff is not creating the impact that we want. Also key to our journey is we view our technology vendors, not as vendors, but as partners. And that partnership is really, really key in these discussions, that we look to their leadership and guidance and what they're doing to improve education. And we look to work with them to improve what we can do. Part of those conversations led us to working with SMART and working with their EdTech capabilities survey, which looks at 22 measures of technology effectiveness within a school district. And in 2018, we administered that survey to our leadership, and we gathered a lot of feedback. And again, I mentioned conversations being so important to us. Our district also has a partnership with the Qualia Institute regarding student voice and teacher voice. And one of the interesting pieces that came specifically out of the EdTech capability survey that we actioned were that we were not taking into account student voice in technology planning. We asked teachers all the time what they wanted, what administrators wanted, but we had never met with students. And one of the great things that we were able to work and that we continue to work on today was having discussions with our students directly on their needs of technology and what we can do to improve their technology experience throughout the district. Which then leads us to March and COVID-19. And I mentioned before that we did not have a student one-to-one initiative. So our students did not have devices that they were taking home on a regular basis. And we began those conversations about where we were going to go should a closure come in late February. We started those discussions, and one of the things we identified pretty quickly was that we were going to need to send devices home with students. So we sent a survey out to our families and our students and said, who needs devices, who needs a device, who needs internet access, because we knew those were going to be needs should a closure arise. And that work in beginning of March quickly escalated and became crucial. And we started deploying devices once we knew a closure was imminent. And we took a centralized approach to it. It was our administrator team, our technology team, our buildings and grounds team. There were so many folks that were involved, and we were over the course of 2 days and a few hours each day, we did drive up curbside deployments of technology devices, and we were able to distribute over 2,000 devices to our community and to our family. And that access and equity piece was crucial to us. We did not want technology to become any factor in gaps for learning or in an educational divide. We wanted to be confident that any student in Cherry Hill who needed access to the internet or needed access to a device was able to get one. And we feel fairly comfortable, and very comfortable actually, that we were able to fulfill that. And there were various challenges we hit, both with internet access early on, where we had to expand our program of deploying hotspots to families that were in need. And we did a rapid deployment of those and got those sent out to our families. We also, communication became important, that we also, as we went remote, we had a way for our families to reach out to us as a technology department, being that we were working remote, and we had that via a student support email where families could reach out to the technology team and engage with them directly.
All right, so while we were preparing for an imminent shutdown, as Marc mentioned, we were simultaneously working on our continuity of learning plan. So we were preparing for distribution of all of those devices, and we had our date set up and we were ready to go. And the governor made an announcement that we would actually be closing that Friday and no longer returning to schools. So we were in the midst of a school closure and deploying devices all on the same day. So when you look at our continuity of learning plan that the district put together, we focused on several areas, as I'm sure all districts across the country were focusing on. But I wanted to highlight 4 areas that really seemed to stick out for us as a school district. The first one was communication. You know, I mentioned that we have 11,000 students within Cherry Hill Public Schools, and that may be small to some individuals depending on where you're located across the country, but in New Jersey, we are the 12th largest school district. So we wanted to make sure that we had consistency in our communication, that all of our students, parents, teachers, community members were all on the same page, because as you are all aware, we are facing some unprecedented times, and we wanted to have clear and consistent communication. Hence why we had this document available for everyone right on our website. We also needed to address synchronous and asynchronous learning. So we, again, have never been in a situation where we have students who are fully remote And we needed to have some really tough conversations about what live interaction would look like, if our interactions were going to be synchronous or asynchronous. And if they were in either models, what type of schedule will we be following for our students? You know, our number one priority is that we are still implementing our curriculum with fidelity. And we pride ourselves on having, you know, high standards, high academic achievement for all of our students. And we did not want the virtual environment to hinder that. A third piece that we worked on very closely as a district was grading. So as we mentioned previously, we knew that a closure was coming, but initially in the state of New Jersey, there was discussions around, you know, a very brief closure. We may be closed for 2 weeks. So our initial plan started with, we are going to pivot to remote learning. We are not going to implement any new instruction, and we are going to use this as a time for reinforcement of previously taught materials and for a deeper dive into standards that had been previously reviewed. And then we rolled into week 3, and then into week 4, and into week 5. And we knew as a district that we needed to make some decisions very quickly to adapt to the environment in which we were working in. So along each one of those continuations of this school closure, we also had to adapt our grading policies for students. So we had different grading at the K-5 level, at the 6-8 level, at the 9-12 level. And an example of that would be at our elementary level, we utilize standards-based report cards. And instead of assessing students based on the standards, which we did, we also added in a longer narrative portion so that teachers could be very specific with families about, here are areas in which your child really met the standard and excelled, and this is how they were able to demonstrate their work. Here is an area in which you should continue to work on with your child through the summer months. Here are some resources. This is what we noticed. So that would really help not only the parent and the student with ending the school year, but also for when the upcoming teacher sees and reviews that child's records, they know where that child left off. And then the last one is food distribution. So Marc mentioned issues of equity, and we did not want there to be any equity issues further pronounced within our school community. And the notion of students being food insecure and that having a direct impact on their ability to participate in instruction was one that we as a district were not willing to accept. So we set up multiple distribution sites for students and families to receive meals on a daily basis all over the community. And one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is that our community really rose to the occasion. So we had other families picking up for families. We had teachers picking up meals and distributing them to families who were not able to make it to the meal distribution sites. We have several families who are essential workers that still needed the food distribution, and we worked together to ensure that everyone in our community was stable, not only from an academic and learning perspective, but also from a social services perspective, which is important, especially when you're dealing with a school closure. So those were four areas of our continuity of learning plan. So as we started to think about our continuity of learning, our distribution of devices, we thought, you know what, we have a very large community, and one of our key things we need to focus on is communication. So we developed a virtual learning team. And this is not to say that we do not have a robust technology department or that we have not communicated with our families through a technology platform, but this was a more systematic way to share with families specific information regarding virtual learning and what we were doing as a district. So what we knew we had to communicate. We knew that our families, our students, our teaching staff were going to be looking at virtual learning from a variety of lenses, and that their familiarity or comfort with the technology platforms was going to be on varying levels. So we wanted to have one place where people could go to access resources. So what does that look like? So we started building this platform and cataloging our resources. So we started to look at, hey, can we begin to develop modules for parents to watch to be able to support their children at home? Can we create modules for teachers to watch if they are not familiar with a particular platform on how to utilize that platform? We were getting inundated with free resources from all sorts of providers, and putting those together in a systematic way so that we could share information out to the community that was not overwhelming. And I see that I'm getting a little bit distracted because the chat comments are popping up, so I'm just going to answer this one. We were able to build this platform utilizing our own staff. There were 4 individuals, and to be very frank with everyone on the call, I actually came up with this idea. I knew that it was something that we needed, but I did not have all of the technology background to be able to implement this. So Jenn Taylor, who is one of the presenters on the call, was one of the individuals who I called upon and said, hey, I have this idea. I know you are capable of doing this. Can you please help me? So really leaning on the knowledge of individuals within your school community is really what helped us to be able to bring this to life. We had individuals from our elementary school represented, our middle school represented, and our high school represented, because we wanted to have that lens when people were looking at the platform. So we did have resources for parents as well. So the teacher side looked a little bit different than the parent side, but many of the resources mirrored each other. And Marc had alluded to earlier that we had set up a student support email that was also available on the parent resource side, because we wanted to be able to support parents not only with technology, because we had distributed all of these devices, but we went an extra step further in that if parents called and they would start the conversation off with you talking about this device, and about 5 minutes in, we would realize that this was not a school issued device. So our services began to support families at home on the device that they were using with our platforms. And then we also had this set up so that parents could email and say, hey, I'm having trouble logging on to this site, or, my child's Google Classroom is not working, whatever it was, so that we could give immediate feedback. So the way our technology team, the field techs who are on the ground operated, looked very differently. The next section was leveraging our district partnerships. So we really tried to use this platform to highlight for teachers all of the resources that we have available, because, and we'll get into it with our SMART presentation with Jenn later on, but we wanted people to know, hey, we have this. This is a platform that our district is able to support in a remote learning environment. We don't want you going, and this is not the time to start trying a new product. This is the time to really hone in and reinforce the products that we already utilize, and to hone in on the partnerships that we already have, so that we can be even better in delivering instruction through a remote environment. And then lastly on there was a survey and a Q&A portion where anyone who accessed the virtual learning team site was able to ask questions, get anything that they needed answered, ask for clarification, and to push us in our thinking in regards to, hey, you should probably add this. I'm noticing that this is a gap in your virtual learning community, and we want it to be robust, and we want it to be able to help all stakeholders who access it. So, and I saw another, we did not use, I don't believe, Google Slides to set this up. We used a variety of just internal platforms. And, as we're building this, one of the things that you really need to be mindful of is that everything that you put online needs to be ADA compliant. It needs to follow all of the rules and regulations for having items posted, any copyright items. So we were very mindful of that as we were building the site. And Jenn, I don't know if you want to add anything else into the virtual learning team, because you were a participant.
I would say that we, like Farah had mentioned, we tried to start with really what those of us on the team knew most and what we thought would be the most beneficial, looking at teachers as knowing that there's a wide range of what people know and are comfortable using. So we tried to stick to platforms that we thought would be most easy to use and that we could give them most support. And I would say, as we get into talking about Smart Learning Speed Online, that was one that we were really pushing.
Thank you. So we were definitely on a journey, as I'm sure all districts across the country were. And we were thinking, you know, hey, we have all this information, but now as we are really trying to promote partnerships that we already have, as I mentioned, and Jen just mentioned with SMART and the utilization of Smart Learning Suite, we offered professional development and supports to our teachers. And I'm going to pass it off to Jen to share with you how we were able to promote the utilization of Smart Learning Suite during our virtual or during remote learning, and to take our interactions with students to the next level.
Okay, so I'm going to first take you on my journey from last school year. At the beginning of the school year, we were started a new math program. And as any teacher knows, when you start a new program, often you are holding on to your manual and not letting it go because you want to make sure you're hitting all parts of your lesson. So I really sat and designed some slides that were walking me through step by step to the point of where one slide had the problem and the next slide after actually had the problem with the answer from the teacher manual, to make sure I was showing my students the right way, or that we could see that there were different ways to solve a problem. Through that phase one at the beginning of the year, my kids actually pushed my thinking further. It started with, hey, Mrs. Taylor, can you have these slides accessible to us from math class when we are home? And thankfully, SMART has the option to share a student copy. So I was able to post that link in my Google Classroom so that when my students were home completing their homework assignments, they could go back and look at our notes from class. Then we pushed it a step further, and I started to record myself making short videos, writing and explaining the problem, so that when they were home, not only did they have notes to look at from class, but then they could look at the video of me teaching the actual lesson right there embedded in the slides. And actually, again, still in phase one, a student pushed me even further and said, can we have access to these slides while you're teaching? So then we started putting devices at every table. If we could manage one-to-one, we did. If it was just, you know, sharing, that was fine. And we started having the devices in front of the students while teaching. That way, when they worked independently on the math problems, if we couldn't get right there, it really boosted their confidence in starting a new math program, that they could look back at those notes, you know, at their tables. Because normally I would just say, oh, go up and look at the smartboard, and you'd have 6 kids up there wanting to look at different slides. Now they had the opportunity in that student-led side instead of teacher-led side of the platform, that they could slide and go jump around through the slides and look at specifically the notes they wanted to see to help guide them during independent practice. Then my phase 2 is when COVID hits and school closes. Our first order of business was we were home for 2 weeks. So we were working on reviewing things. So the kids were all anxious and nervous. I relied heavily on the Smart Learning Suite Online's games, so that way I could make review games for my kids that they were excited to play. It was a very easy transition because they were used to using the platform in school. There were absolutely no problems. And the kids were excited to play and share with me what they were doing. And of course, with the games, they think you've spent all this time creating this amazing game for them. In reality, it's so quick and easy. It's great. Which then led us to phase 3. Phase 3 is when we started some new instruction. And I wasn't teaching live yet. This was more asynchronous, where I was sending out assignments. But I did go back on that, continue to use Smart Learning Suite Online, because again, it was something my kids were familiar with. And I had the ability to embed so many different types of activities with pre-recorded videos of me teaching. But to be honest, something still felt like it was missing. The kids were happy and engaged, but they still had questions, and I felt like I wasn't always right there by their side answering them. And that's when I made the push to say, okay, I'm going to try teaching live. So I used video conferencing. I actually used Zoom. My students joined the call. I didn't even have to share my screen, because they would just go to hellosmart.com and follow along with the lesson. And I could actually write on my device, so it looked like I was writing on the smartboard. I will be honest, not as neatly, but it was on there, and they could follow along. So I'm going to show you some examples of what that looked like for me. So this right now is a GIF sliding through. These are one of my lessons for when we were in school, in-person teaching. So you'll see my notes. You'll see somewhere it's from the textbook, the answer key. I often, like I said before, would add videos. Sometimes I even link to additional resources from our program right into the slides. That way the kids could have access to all of those tools while they were working independently in class, which is an amazing thing because this tool is so good for home and school learning. And then next is the game base. Any teacher, this is one of your best friends. All of these amazing templates already put together by Smart. You can so quickly make something, even if you're quickly in the lesson decide, oh my gosh, they need more practice with this, I'm not ready for this. You can quickly make a game on the spot while the kids are working on something and have something added to your lesson that's going to give them so much more interactive practice, and they're so excited to do it. Also check out those extra templates with all those pre-made like exit tickets and collaborative spaces. They're all very easy to add to your slides and just bring so much interactivity to your work. And now actually we're gonna ask that you join me on hellosmart.com. So I'm going to escape out of this. Oh, finish that in the wrong spot there. Sorry about that. I thought I had it up.
That's okay. And while she's doing that, if you want to open up another browser, or sometimes I tell people it's easy just to have it on your phone as well, either way works. Go out to Hello Smart. She's going to pop that up in a second. There you go. I'll let you keep going, Jen, but I figured I'd jump in while you're grabbing that.
Okay. So as you log in, you're going to see the student side. So I'm going to show you how I can flip from teacher-led instruction to student-led, and you can, I have some handouts in here, but this is an actual lesson that I did with my students. I just made a copy so that you wouldn't see all of my writing all over it. We have some drag and drop activities in here as well. What's really awesome about Smart is that Learning Suite Online is you can grab your already made Smart Notebook files as well as Google Slides or PDFs and upload them right away, and it just turns it in, so you have this easy platform to share with your students. I guess I should just give them another minute, Amy, right?
Yep, and I'm going to type it in the chat as well so that we have
perfect.
it. So 26575 hellosmart.com. And there's a question in the chat too. So do you need a Smart license to have a teacher account in Hello Smart? So throughout last spring, we did actually have that open for anyone to use. But coming this fall, you would need a license for that. And we can certainly send you information on how to get a license. Tech can certainly send that as well. I will say, as a part of this session, one of the things we're going to do at the end, and you'll get an email about this, is we will be trying to give away a site license for this for up to 100 teachers. So if you're on and you have a site and you win, you can have 100 teachers at your site have access to it.
And I will mention also, when I moved to trying to teach live and have this, there are definitely days that not every student could join. So then I would have another assignment posted for them, but they had access back to the lesson from things that we did in class. So they could look at the progress that we made in class and then do their own assignment.
Yep, absolutely. And there's a question, what if we have smart boards in the school already? So if you're already using smart boards in the school, you'll probably have our basic version of notebook software. That's what's included with the boards. This is more of our distance learning type of software. It's Smart Learning Suite. So you may have a license already. Matthew, I know that's specific to you. We can certainly follow up with that. Joseph, if you guys on text and want to check what kind of license they have, if they have our more student device one or the board one. Yep.
Ready to move on, Amy? Thank you.
Yeah, there is a question as well, or just maybe a few more people to join. This one is a good one for you, I think. So can you integrate the 5 practices of math discourse to a Smart Suite integrated lesson? I do not know what the 5 practices of math discourse are. So I'm going to turn that over to you.
I'm going to fall back on I am a Notre Dame trustee STEM teaching fellow, and we've talked a lot about discourse and math. In my opinion, because I'm not expecting when I'm teaching live with this, that my students are sitting and not having conversation. On that call, all that conversation is happening, but they can also, if I make those collaborative workspaces, they can see what each other is doing and discuss together their strategies. And then also, I can pull up, if I give them all a handout, I can pull that up and we can discuss that too. So we could look at each other's work. So there were lots of workarounds with being home that I could still feel like, I'm gonna be honest with you, this was the moment when I felt more like I was at school than any other part of distance learning. Having my students on a call and engaging in practices with Smart Learning Suite Online that we had done in school in the fall we all felt so much better. And the first call, I think I had half my class joined, and by the end, it was usually close to 100%. And if they couldn't join, they were sending me a message, I'm so sorry I can't make it there. Please make sure you post the lesson so I can check up on it, because they felt more comfortable, and it was comforting that they felt like we were all together even though we were sitting on a conference call.
Awesome. I think with that, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay.
And I'll continue to monitor the chat here.
So up here right now, I'm going to show you that I'm in teacher pacing. And if I clicked this button, I could go to student pacing. But right now as the teacher, I would be moving through the lesson. And this is a game that you can click start. This was a lesson of where I needed the kids to work on multiplication. So this was a quick review with just basic facts. So you can just hit the start button and you can play, or somebody can play. I can still play on the main device, or we could play on the smart board if we were in school, while kids are also playing on their own devices. So right now you'll all have a chance to click and drag. You drag one to the center. Sorry, my Zoom is in the way. And then you drag a match, and then if they match, they go together. For timing's sake, I'm going to keep going. I hope that's okay, Amy.
Yep, I think that's great.
Okay, and then this one is a drag and drop. I will be honest that this is one of those activities that I did purchase from Teachers Pay Teachers, because you end up running out of time and you can't make everything. But I was able to make clip art of the numbers, and then I can drag them and do the multiplication. So this is where I would be modeling for them. And most likely then the next day they would have this independently after I just reviewed with them and modeled and clarified any questions for the students. And then this was another one where we together would do perimeter area. So we would just drag it over and talk about if it was perimeter or area. And what's awesome is I could make it really big when we were talking about it. And then once we sorted, I could just shrink it down and stick it in their category. And then next is where I would model for them. We were doing area and perimeter of more complex shapes. So I would model first, and then the next lesson, the next slide is where the students would do it. So I always had a preview first when we were home on distance learning, just to remind them of how to use the tools. So on the next slide, you're going to have access to this. You will be able to click the add text and work in this space. And then also you can click the pen and write on your screen. I'm going to move to that right now. And then on my end, I can click student progress, and I can see the handouts will load for every student, and I can see what they're working on. And that check mark appears when they are finished. But when I was doing this live through Zoom, I could jump into the student's handout and talk to them about what they were doing and see if they had any questions. And I was fortunate that I'm in a co-teaching inclusion class, so I have a co-teacher who would also join. So there were definitely times that we would use our information from all of our handouts and how the lesson went and ask a kid maybe to stay back, or we would grab a few and go in a breakout room and work in a smaller group. Just watching the time. Okay, and then this would be a more complex problem that we would go back to together, and we would have a long discussion about how to solve it and share strategies and talk about the best way to do it. This is a video that is embedded to review polygons, because I was trying to, when we were home, do some small snippets of different instruction that we were trying to cover over the end of the year. To keep them engaged. They liked the smaller chunking of different concepts. And then this is a collaborative workspace. So you can set it up, you can make teams. I'm gonna break you into smaller groups. It will automatically make groups. If you know that certain kids, you wanna separate them or have them work in different spaces, you can actually click and drag the names and swap people around. But then when I click start workspace, those teams all have the same workspace that they're working on and can collaborate and work together, and then I can pop in and see what a group is doing. So on this one, you can click and drag a line to connect the word with the definition. My kids love collaborative workspaces because it makes them feel like they're in school together deciding on something, even though we are home and miles apart.
Jen, can I jump in here for a quick
Yes.
second? I just want to go back to the 5 questions for math discourse piece. And I held off because I thought you offered a great response. But now I can't remember who actually asked the question, but based on what Jen just went through, I think that you will see that Smart Learning Suite absolutely addresses the 5 questions or math discourse conversation, because when you think about what Jen just shared with you, she had an anticipatory set. She was looking at, okay, where do we start our lesson? I want you to work on a problem by yourself. And then she mentioned how she's able to monitor students in the workspace and look at key ideas and approaches that she is using. And then selecting like, okay, what I want to be purposeful about what it is that I am presenting to the students and making sure that I am teaching them based on what they are showing me are their areas of strength and areas in which I maybe need to circle back and offer additional support. And then, you know, when we talk about sequencing, when you're presenting student work, Jenn didn't mention this, but there are ways not only for students to share their work on the screen, completing assignments, but we're also, Jenn can give the, I guess, the Smart Learning Suite space over to a student and allow them to mark up work live for their classmates to be able to see. And then when you think about connecting, you're talking about how are we making mathematics visible for all of our students and connecting what they're doing in this workspace to real life and to the problems that they're doing. So I think Jenn was able to demonstrate that, but in my own opinion, I do think that Smart Learning Suite is an excellent platform to be able to address the 5 questions of math discourse. And when you think about other content areas, this is a platform that can be utilized not just with mathematics, but across all the content areas. And if you are thinking about critical conversations around discourse or 5, you know, if for me, we're talking specifically about math now, but this is a great workspace to be able to do that in. So I just wanted to add that in.
And with that, I want to say there were many times, you know, when it's not a math lesson, that in school I could pull up like a 3-column chart, and my students might be researching something, and all together we're finding research for each one of those topics. So one of the times we were researching explorers, and then we brought that information to the main smartboard, and we all sat at the carpet together and really dissected that information, and we were able to click and drag and sort things together and find commonalities, and it just leads to a great discussion because you have this space where everyone kind of dumps what they've learned and you can sort through it and dig through it. That's one of my favorite activities, to be honest, with Smart. Okay.
Yeah, and we've had some questions about real-time feedback, and I think if you want to just even elaborate a little bit more on that, and maybe even you know, popping into a workspace and showing them how you have one of the, as we at Smart have looked at what do we need for to help support this remote learning, we've added things like attribution and that real-time feedback. So I don't know if you want to show a little bit of that even.
So when I was doing this online with my students, I often would talk to them, but then also I can grab the text box if I'm looking at this later, and I can make notes for them too. But I found that I was more having engaging conversations if I saw commonalities between the whole class, like jumping in those handouts. And I would just honestly write all over their slides is how I handled it. I'm sure there's many other ways, but that was how my students were most used to it, because I often ask probing questions as to how they got that information or what they are thinking without giving the exact answer. And they're used to going back to, you know, relook at it and think about what was my process and how can I do better, or where did I lose my train of thought. So that was how I handled feedback, Amy. I don't know if that answers.
No, I think that's great. And another way that, you know, people use the software is that they get that feedback and then they're like, ooh, I need to do something really quickly. Like do you want to show them how you can get a blank page and then actually push, you know, write some math problems and push that out? Right.
So you can simply click this plus button right here. And honestly, this is great even when you're in your brick and mortar school. Like this works there too. Like I use Smart Learning Suite and I pop it in. Actually, I'm not gonna lie, my favorite activity is really a shout it out activity. But you can add a blank page, and then I can quickly just put in some questions. I'm just going to do it with my mouse. So like, let's say I just want to do 25 times 15, and then I can have my kids work on this. Do you mind if I do a shout it out?
Yeah, sure.
Jenn, I was getting ready to say, can you describe what a shout it out is?
They're my favorite.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know others probably have utilized shout it out, but in a different platform. But I think knowing that Smart Learning Suite has a shout it out feature embedded into the platform would be really helpful for individuals to know.
Yeah. So you can see someone already just typed right now, hey there, so I could pose a question to my class. you know, give me a word to describe how you're feeling right now or whatever you want. And then when you click on it, it makes it larger and you can see every person has their own individual icon and color. So you can sort them. I can click and drag them. If these go together, I can say this is a group and this is a group. So this is actually how often when my students would put information in those collaborative workspaces, like in a column chart, we would look at all of them. We can make them larger to read them. We can analyze it. And then we can say, oh, that goes with this one. Oh, now this whole group goes with these. Let's move them around. This is like the best way to quickly gauge your kids. You can even just say, rate yourself on a 1, 2, 3, and 4. How are you feeling about this right now? Because sometimes as teachers, we don't always put everything in the exact place when you're living it in the moment where you want it. You might decide in the fly, I need to add this. So this is a great way to quickly add something and get information from your students.
I love it. And I would say even with the math problem that she just wrote, you can actually push that whiteboard out to students as a handout as well. And if you want to walk them through the process or kind of monitor their process and not the final answer, you could do that too. In fact, we also had a question. Someone asked how you could toggle between teacher and student pace. So if you want to just
yeah. Sorry, I forgot about that. All right, so let's say my lesson is over and now the kids are working. I just click this student tab now, and now you have the capabilities of using these arrows and going back through the whole lesson. If you click between the arrows, that number, that's the slide, you can see all the slides at once too, and scroll through to pick what you want instead of just up and down.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I know we are.
I just want to say that's a great tool when they're home doing work to look back.
Yes. And I know we're getting close on the time here. I want to be mindful of the next presenters. So perhaps we move on and we continue to answer questions in chat if that works.
Works. Sorry,
I think we've got about 3 minutes left.
So I think I've already hit on the next slide of all my favorite things about SMART: feedback, formative assessments, the templates, embed video, the collaboration and interactivity, very student friendly. And one of my favorite things is, as a teacher, if I make it, I have the ability to share with my other teachers on my grade level so that they can take the lesson and adapt it for themselves in addition to sharing with students. And then with that, I'll turn it back to Farah.
Just so that we can be mindful of time, as Amy said, I'm going to run through this really quickly. We are taking everything that you just heard and thinking about what can we do better in the fall. We already know that we will be remote in some sort of hybrid model starting in September. And I saw all of the questions coming through in the chat. One of the things that we are doing as a district, because our teachers also have very similar questions on a variety of platforms that we use, we're running a professional development summer series with an emphasis on technology, highlighting. Jenn actually will be running several sessions on Smart Learning Suite and having live interactions with staff members. And then the last one is improving our continuity of learning, our We Return to School plan. And it's really going to emphasize live interactions with students and synchronous and asynchronous learning through the Smart Learning Suite platform. So we thank you for your time today. We thank you for listening. We do have our final slide, which includes all of our contact information. If you have questions that are specific to each of us, we try to include them throughout the presentation and circle back to all of them, but we are always available to answer anything that you might have. So thank you again, Amy and Joseph and Nina, for this opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Fabulous. Again, you've done such a wonderful job. And I just love how your team comes together, curriculum, technology, and just all hands on deck to do such an awesome job. So thank you for that. I'm going to wrap. I'm going to just really quickly share my screen. There's a few things that we wanted to talk about. So first of all, if you want to, I'm going to move this over here. If you want to learn more, we do have a Fast Forward Education Summit where we'll be doing a lot of PD. Actually, tomorrow is a teacher-based PD, and then on the 29th and 30th, there's some PD sessions as well. I'll go ahead and put that link in the chat once I'm done sharing here so you guys can see that. But certainly welcome to, love to have you join us there. And then the other thing I just wanted to share is there were a lot of questions about Smart Learning Suite and how do you get Smart Learning Suite. So everyone, like I mentioned earlier, everyone who's here today is going to get a chance to win a school license that they can, share with their school or, designate a school in their particular district as a thank you for attending. And again, the four ways in which we've really helped support school districts as they have, transitioned really quickly to a hybrid kind of remote learning environment is helping you interact anywhere, helping you have a more continuity of learning and experience with the students, giving you a way to provide feedback, having that social emotional support by being able to create small groups and have them work together. And then, of course, integrating with existing platforms. We do have the Google app. Microsoft Teams should be coming any day now, actually. It's all been submitted, and we're just waiting for Microsoft to turn it on. So we've got integration with platforms as well. So thank you guys for attending. I mean, more importantly, thank you to Cherry Hill for presenting and sharing everything. I know we have a relatively hard stop, but we'll kind of keep the chats monitoring and answer questions there. Joseph, anything else you want to add?
Just thank everyone. I did put some links to some free online certifications and courses that go a little further into how to use Learning Suite. I think Jenn, Farah, and Marc did a great job explaining on how, specifically Jenn uses it in the classroom, which is an excellent use case. But there were a lot of great questions on like how to specifically use features and functionality, and I did put some courses in the chat box for that. That's what I have.
Awesome. And I just added the link for the fast forward as well if you wanted to join that and check out some of those sessions for some quick back to school PD as well. So thank you guys. We really, really appreciate your time today, and good luck as you plan for the uncertainty that's coming in the fall. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.